Hi guys, I Aziz welcome you to Codemaster, and in this video I am going to talk about priority queues. I will explain what is priority queues, how it works, what are the common methods that we can call on priority queues, what are the features of priority queues, and what are the real world applications of priority queues. So there are a lot of things to discuss. So without wasting any time, let's get started. Alright guys, so let's begin this video. So guys, if you look at this collection hierarchy diagram, you will see that there are two collections that implements queue interface. Number one is the ArrayDec class and number two is the priority queue class. And both the classes are implemented using dynamic size array. Then the question over here is, what is the actual difference between ArrayDec class and priority queue class? So let's demystify priority queue class in this video. So let's start with the very first question, that what is queue? So guys, queue is a linear data structure that is used to store and process data in FIFO style. And FIFO stands for first in, first out. So the elements that added first in the queue will be removed first from the queue. So let's say for example we have three messages M1, M2 and M3. And we added all the three messages in the queue. So when we remove three messages from the queue, we get all the messages in the same order as we have inserted. So for example, if M1 inserted first, then M2 and then M3. So when we remove these messages, we get M1 first and then M2 and then M3. So this is how queue follows FIFO policy, first in, first out. Now this brings us to the next question, that what happens if you want to process elements based on some other order. Let's say for example, we do not want to process elements in FIFO style. We want to process elements based on some priority. So guys, this is where priority queues comes into picture. Now what is priority queues? Priority queues is exactly same as the normal queues. The only difference between the normal queues and priority queues is priority queues processed elements based on some priority assigned to it. So for example, highest priority elements will be processed first, then the lower priority elements. Now the next question is how priority queues internally works. So guys, for your kind information, priority queues in Java Collections framework is implemented using binary heap data structure. Yes, you heard that right. It is implemented using binary heap data structure. For those who don't know about binary heap data structure, I have created separate videos on binary heap data structure. So I highly recommend to watch that video first and then come back here to continue watching this video. It is very crucial to understand binary heap data structure before you continue learning priority queues. So now back on the video. So let's understand working of priority queues with this example. So let's say we have four elements 1, 2, 3 and 4. So when we give these four elements to priority queues, it's going to create a binary heap data structure internally. And that could be of two types. Either we can create priority queues that uses minimum heap internally, or we can create priority queues that uses maximum heap internally. So let's say for example, in case of minimum heap, it's going to create minimum heap from all of these elements. So we get 1, 2, 3 and 4 like this. So in minimum heap priority queues, when we remove the first element, the first smallest element gets removed from the heap. So we are left with three elements now, 2, 4 and 3. And now if we again remove one element, it's going to remove the smallest element from all the elements, that is 2. So we are left with 3 and 4. And if we again remove any element from the priority queues, it's going to remove the smallest element, that is 3. So we are left with 4. And then we finally remove the last element and then we are left with empty priority queue. So this is how priority queue with minimum heap works. Now what about priority queues with maximum heap? So in this case, it's going to take all the elements and internally it's going to create a maximum heap out of it. And when we call remove method on it, it's going to simply remove the greatest element or the largest element of all the elements, that is 4. So we are left with 3 elements. So we again remove one element and it's going to remove the largest element among all the elements. So we end up with 1 and 2. So again we remove the element, it's going to remove the largest element among all the elements, that is 2. Then we are left with 1, and as soon as we remove last element, we are left with empty priority queue. So this is how priority queues work with minimum heap as well as maximum heap. So I hope this is clear to you. Now this brings us to the next question, that why do we even need queues? So guys, queues are used in the scenarios where we have a fast paced producer and slow paced consumer. So in this case, we put a queue in between so that producer and consumer can easily synchronize with each other. So let's understand this concept with this real world example. So the classic example of producer and consumer is printer spooler queue. So here what happens, printer is acting as a consumer and it is a slow paced device. This means it can print one document at once. Okay. And here is a client. So here client is act as a producer and it is a fast paced entity. So what client does, client gives 4 instructions to this printer that he wants to print 4 documents. Okay. But as we know that printer can only print one document at a time. So what happens in this case, our operating system push all the instruction in a queue data structure so that printer can access one document at a time, print it and then move to the next instruction. So this is how queue is acting as an intermediary entity between producer that is fast paced and the consumer that is slow paced, so that we can synchronize producer and consumer easily. Now let's see the next example of priority queue. So the classic example of priority queues is a doctor and patients. So let's say there is one doctor and this is acting as a consumer and we have 3 patients and these patients are acting as a producer. Now what happens, all the patients want to visit this doctor, but for a doctor it is not possible to treat all the patients at once. So in this case what happens, we assign priorities to all the patients based on the severity of their health conditions. Okay. So the patient that has highest priority will be visited first to the doctor, and then the patient that has lower priority, that is patient 2, and then the more lower priority patient, that is patient 3. So this is how we assign priorities to all the patients so that doctor can treat patients based on some priorities. Now let's move on to the next section where we will see all the most commonly used method that we can call on priority queues. So the first set of methods is add an offer. So add an offer method is used to add elements into the queue. Now the only difference between these two methods is when add method is called on fully filled queue, it simply throws illegal state exception, whereas offer method gives false as a return value, and this false indicates that queue is full and we cannot add more elements to it. Now the next set of method contains remove and pull. Both of these method is used to remove elements out of the queue. The only difference is remove method throws no such element exception when called on empty queue, whereas pull method returns special value of null to indicate that queue is empty and you cannot call pull method on empty queue. The next set of method contains element and peek method. These two method is used to see the element present in the front of the queue. The only difference is element method throws no such element exception when called on empty queue, and on the other hand peek method simply returns null value. Now the next commonly used methods are iterator, contain, size and array. So the job of iterator is to return the iterator so that we can traverse all the elements of the priority queue. But here the iterator does not give any guarantee of the traversal of all the elements of the priority queue in a specific order. The next one is the contain method. So the contain method is used to search specific element in the priority queue. The next one is size method. So size method when called returns the number of elements that are present in priority queue. And last but not the least, toArray method. ToArray method is simply used to convert elements of priority queue into an array of elements. So guys, these are all the most commonly used method we call on priority queues. I hope this is clear to you. Now let's move on to the next section where we discuss about the features of priority queues. So guys, the first feature of priority queue is it is an unbounded queue. This means there is no restriction on the capacity of the priority queue. We do not have to worry about the capacity. Why? Because the priority queues is implemented using dynamic size arrays, and whenever arrays get full, it automatically grows internally in size. The next feature of priority queues is the priority queues does not allow null insertion, so we cannot enter null into the queue. The next feature is by default in priority queues, items are ordered in natural ordering. This means in increasing order. But it is up to us that we want to change the order or not. We can pass the custom comparator while creating the instance of priority queues in order to change the order of the elements. Now the next feature is all the items in the priority queue must implement comparable interface. And why is it so? Because priority queues uses comparator method in order to arrange all the elements in a specific order. That is why it is must for all the objects to implement comparable interface. Now the next feature is, so if there are multiple items of same priority present in the priority queue, then the priority queue can simply poll any of them randomly. So guys, these are all the most popular features of priority queue. Now let's move on to discuss what are the actual real-world applications of priority queues. So the first application of priority queue is task scheduling in operating system. So guys, in operating system, priority queues are used very extensively to schedule tasks based on some priorities. For example, there are some highly priority tasks like security patches of your operating system. So this task has given the higher priority than the lower priority task like background backup process. So this is how operating system uses priority queues to schedule tasks based on priority. The next application of priority queues is emergency room in hospitals. So for example, there are 2 emergency rooms and there are 4 patients that are eagerly waiting to get access of emergency rooms. So in that case, what we are going to do, we will assign priorities to all the patients based on the severity of their health conditions. So the patients that has higher priority will be given emergency room in first, and then the emergency room is given to lower priority patients, and so on and so forth. So this is how priority queues are used in hospitals. Now the next real world application of priority queues is network routing. So guys, we are surrounded with networks, and in networks there are different types of data that flows around the networks, right? That could be of voice type, video type, email type and file type. But here in case of voice and video type, we cannot bear the delay in the voice and video because we always want real-time voice and video calling. But we can bear the delay in emails and file uploads. So that is why the packets that contains voice and video data has given the priority over the data that contains email and file. So in order to achieve these type of features, priority queues is used in network routing, so that highest priority is given to voice and video packets and lower priority is given to email and file type of data. So guys, this is how priority queues is used in network routing. Now the next real world application of priority queue is online marketplace. So guys, in online marketplace, priority queues is used to deliver orders to the customers. And how priority queues is used to deliver the customer? So guys, there are different types of orders. Some order has express delivery and some orders has standard delivery. So the orders that has express delivery is given highest priority as compared to orders that has standard delivery. So based on priorities, express delivery orders will be processed first, then the standard delivery orders. So this is how priority queues is used in online marketplace to manage the delivery of orders to the customers. So guys, I hope everything is clear to you. So in this video, we have learned what is priority queues, how it works, what are the methods of priority queues, what are the features of priority queues, and what are the real world application of priority queues. So this is all from my side for this video. If you have learned something valuable from this video, then hit the like button in order to make YouTube algorithm happy, and please subscribe to the channel and don't forget to click the bell icon so my friend you never miss any upcoming videos. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.